India has a relatively open economy. Trade goes on unimpeded in most cases, and government doesn't intervene as much. However, in a market this diverse and massive, not everyone plays fair. In some cases, they deliberately flout rules, but in other situations, they amass significant influence in the market and monopolize it entirely. This dominance affects the market and consumers alike. New players struggle to prosper, and consumers struggle to settle for limited options. And that's why we have the Competition Commission of India, or CCI. The CCI believes in a very simple mantra: customers reign supreme. And based on this motto, the Commission's job is to make sure everyone in the market abides by this little maxim. They also make sure no player gets any undue advantages when it comes to prices, supply, or any such stuff like that. But recently, they have fined a very prominent tech company in the world, and that is Google. So, why did that happen? Okay, so there are two orders here. The first order tackles Google's dominance in the operating systems market, and the second is we'll come to that later. Almost 95% of all smartphones in India run on Android, and Android happens to be an open source operating system, right? Meaning developers can modify and share the design since it's publicly accessible. However, though, if you intended to make your version accessible to people, then you'd have to tie up with phone manufacturers like Samsung and Xiaomi. But this isn't possible since Google puts in place restrictions that prevent manufacturers from experimenting too much. For instance, if a manufacturer intended to use Google's proprietary apps such as Google Maps, then they are forced to use Google's version of Android. They also had to carry Google's search widget, the Chrome browser, and an entire suite of applications without offering users the ability to uninstall them. So in summary, phone manufacturers have to feature Google's suite of applications prominently in some cases. This is what CCI believes inhibits competition and affects user experiences. So they slapped a heavy fine and asked Google to do away with these restrictive agreements. The second order, which I said, focused on Google's App Store. An App Store is a medium of distribution, right? So if you are a developer and you want to create an app for millennials probably, then you'd want to list the program on an App Store to make it accessible to everyone. And the most dominant alternative is the Google Apps Play Store. However, if you're listing an app on the Play Store, you have to play by Google's rules. Now, consider a hypothetical dating app which you just built. It's free to use, but if users wanted any preferential access, you could impose a simple fee. It's a very little monetization model. But Google's Play Store policies will require you to exclusively use Google's Play billing system for receiving payments. You can't use any alternative methods. So by that, it's a diktat imposed on every app, and there's no getting out of it. And throughout this mode of transaction, Google charges a service fee of 15 to 30%. Meanwhile, traditional payment charges just a transaction fee of roughly 1 to 3%. So that's an insane difference. And like we noted earlier, developers can't do away with this restriction. It's a take it or leave it offer. And it gets worse when you consider that Google doesn't impose this restriction on everyone. For example, YouTube, which is Google's own app, can completely bypass this 30% commission rate altogether. So that is why the CCI has imposed a combined fine of 2,274 crores and asked Google to stop imposing these restrictions altogether. No more gatekeeping, no more exclusive billing systems, and no more abuse of dominance. So what's going to happen next? Well, we just have to wait and watch.